Welcome to another episode of Beyond Physical, where we talk about the mental, emotional, social, and at times spiritual benefits of exercise. We believe that exercise is more than movement, and this podcast is our attempt at sharing that message with the world by sharing our own as well as our guests' experiences and knowledge. If you enjoy it, we ask that you please spread the message by leaving a rating and review, or even better, by sharing with a friend. Now, onto the show.
Meg, it out and stuff.
Thank you for making the time. Finally, after some kind of noise-related postponement last week. But to be honest, you're one of the first people that we had on our list in terms of coming to chat on the podcast. So I'm surprised it's taken this long to get you here. But thank you so much, as I said. But for people who don't know you, who are you? What is your story in a nutshell?
I hate this question.
What do you do? Kind of what brought you to that point?
Yeah.
Just like a very high level overview of what Meg does and
Okay.
who Meg is.
So hi guys, my name's Meagan. I am originally from the States. I moved to Cape Town about 3.5 years ago after visiting to the Two Oceans Ultra. And like on my run, I was like, I want to move to this city. Like this is an incredible place. Fast forward, like I think 3 years after that, and then I moved here. I currently own and manage an activewear brand, Up. I'm a runner. I like to run. I like to just live life and thrive. But yeah, that's me.
And that's such a cool story about moving around the kind of doing the two oceans and then where in the States are you from and how did you find out about the two oceans?
I was living in Namibia at the time. I was doing Peace Corps. And I had done a few marathons in Namibia. And I was like, it's like, there's literally like 1 or 2 marathons there. And like, you kind of want to branch out after that because it's like literally just like a marathon along the desert/sea. And it's just like super monotonous on a highway. And then so I was like, I want to visit Cape Town. I've always wanted to visit. And then I found the Two Oceans. And I was like, I've never done an ultra. An ultra sounds very cool. So I came down and I did it.
And were you who were you staying with in Namibia? Were you kind of did your family move there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was there for the Peace Corps for work.
Okay.
Yeah, I was doing development type of work. So like working in like living in the townships and everything and working with like local municipalities, NGOs, like it was just like a whole array of things.
How did you get into that?
I had always like loved I hate the word like helping people, but like that's the first thing that comes to mind. Like I had known I wanted to go into NGO work and I knew I wanted to do work overseas. And the long-term vision was that I was going to go into like some diplomacy work, maybe work for like the UN or something like that. And the Peace Corps is like the best kind of like route into that. For those not familiar, there's Peace Corps is like all over the world, and you can work as like someone who assists in like they call it like health volunteers. So you can like assist in hospitals, you can teach, you can be in development, which is like the program I was in, and yeah, it was kind of on my like career trajectory that I was gonna do. Yeah,
Okay.
It was like my like next step up basically. Yeah.
And then somewhere along the line, you kind of got into entrepreneurship and you did a whole 180 and changed up. Is it something that you still from time to time tap into, or are you fully kind of locked into Up and building your brand?
Yeah, I think it's like all tied into it. Like, I think the love for helping and helping the community it's definitely still there. And I think that I realized when I decided to leave that career is like you can do good work in any capacity, especially when you're in private. So like for us, the goal would be to one day sponsor sports teams from the township or like start sponsoring certain athletes. So you can still do the work that you want to do. You don't always have to be on the ground, like, working at an NGO. So I think that's the focus with Up is like we still have that vision long term is to be able to do that and stuff.
Do you think what kind of role did Peace Corps have in how you run your business now? Because I've observed that community is a huge part of the brand that you're building. Do you feel that that in any way was influenced by your interest in helping people and being involved in that setup, or where did that? Yeah.
I don't know if it's Peace Corps per se. I think it's just like more of how I am, if that makes any sense. Like, I guess when first starting up, one of the first things, and still is, like you said, the community aspect. And also goes, I think, back down to why the brand was started. And a huge part of it was, like, one, the love for movement, and B, the love for helping people. And I think that, like, for me, I just, like, movement, running, and like specifically has, like, changed my life so much. So to have a brand or to have a community that also helps other people through running or whatever it may be, I think that's like I think it just goes back down to like where it all came from, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Yeah, and less about the Peace Corps itself. Yeah.
Okay. And in terms of your running journey, like it's kind of it's gotten to a point where it's quite, you know, it's pretty high level. Like you're running distances that most people couldn't even imagine. I suppose it seems like the natural, well, maybe not natural, but a progression with a lot of people where you just end up going and taking it further and further.
It's such a thing. Sorry, you were gonna.
No, go for it.
Like there's like constantly like, and I'm sure you have this as well, where you're like, what's the cap? And I'm constantly asking myself, for like making sure, are you doing this because you're still searching for something, or that like making sure that like I'm doing it because I love it and not because it's this like what's next type of mentality. Like last year I remember finishing the 100K, and like it was so nice, but like literally had just finished and someone was like, so what's next? And it's a fair question, but I'm constantly self-reflecting and I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, am I doing it because I feel like there's like this what's next type of mentality? But yeah, it's how do you navigate that? Or do you
how do I navigate the what's next thing? Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. It's a cool question, but it's around. I feel like it's got a lot to do with why you actually exercise, and I actually really wanted to dig into what role exercise plays in your life as opposed to just being a kind of movement outlet, because you don't have to run 100 Ks. You know, you can do stuff that's a lot, you know, there are lots of low hanging fruits around exercise. But for me, how do I navigate what's next? I'm quite intuitive with that thing. So if I have that in my mind, I will entertain it and explore that idea. You know, if I have what's next, I'll be like, let me go away and think about it for a bit. But it really depends, because for instance, after this most recent event, I've had very little what's next. I've kind of had, I'm just going to let it settle in, let the dust settle. I'm going to rest. I'm going to train in ways that I want to train in and that make me feel good and happy. And I'll reassess in a few weeks' time. But I've also had lots of questions around what's the next thing? What are you going to...
I was going to ask, like, do you have an idea?
I do have something that's kind of there, like, but I'm not... But they aren't. I mean, there are things in the calendar, but when one says what's next for me, it's like, what's the next big prep? Because like the next few things are more social, more lifestyle oriented. Like that, I've kind of paused with my coach for a little bit, so it's not going to be this huge, hardcore, like life shifting build. But to answer your question, I am looking at potentially doing the maxi race, the 75K. And I really want to just give that one everything and see how quickly I can do it, because I've never done an ultra like that where I'm trying to go hard. Like I'm usually just chilling and taking it in. But I think it could be quite interesting to have a go at something and really like just push myself, because I enjoy that a lot. I think that's why I do the longer stuff, is because it's, although I'm taking it very slowly and I'm like, I'm looking at my surroundings and I'm just enjoying it. You're still pushing yourself, you know, because it's like, it's a distance
There's a person ahead. Like, can I get them?
You know, it's like, sometimes it's like, oh, there's somebody there, like, let me,
100%.
but it's mainly just like, I've never done this before, and by virtue of that, I am pushing myself. Like
that's exactly that. Yeah.
And it scratches an itch pushing yourself, and I think it's really healthy to create those kinds of scenarios in your life where you are being pushed.
Yeah, for sure.
And also in a relatively safe and controlled environment, because there are spaces in your life that you get pushed and it's involuntary and it's scary and there's a
Yeah,
huge amount of
that's so
risk
true.
attached,
Yeah.
and you're not really playing around there. That's like real life stuff.
That's so true. Yeah.
Whereas running an ultra it's serious, but you are deciding
control.
to, you're in control. You're putting yourself into this situation, and you're like dialing a bunch of things in. Like, okay, can I endure this? And it's just, I don't know. It's like a safe space for pushing yourself.
That's so true, because I'm constantly like, you have enough risk in your life, like you have enough challenges, like not why, but like that's such a good way of saying that, like it's a controlled level of challenge. And so I was wondering, I was like, you have enough challenge, so why do you still why do you keep doing these things, but it's actually like that really cool controlled challenging time to like explore and play,
Yes.
which that's actually worded very, very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of time to think about it.
So much time.
Yeah, no, because it's it is like a thing of like what is the point of doing that stuff? But there's such a sense of achievement when you overcome something difficult. But
For sure. Even like every weekend, like I get nervous for like anything over 15 kilometers. I get a bit nervous for. So like every weekend, I feel like I'm just like, I was nervous for this thing and I did it. Achievement. But in anything like with work or business or whatever, there's like achievements feel and they look very different. Whereas like with running, it's very, like you said, it's controlled. Like, okay, cool, training peaks, 20K, done. That feels good because I tick that off. Whereas like for me and like the business or, work or whatever, there's little benchmarks where they look a bit different and stuff, So this is like, it feels good to overcome for sure. Yeah.
And how did you link up with Mindset Movement? Because for me, it's an awesome thing that they're doing, and from the outside, it appears to be quite a hardcore running group.
Yeah.
And I went and I like read their mission and everything, and like there's a lot of profanity and there's a lot of like, this is the way we do things, and like I remember the first rule is
5:29.
yes,
like, why
yes,
do you start at 5:30,
yes.
guys?
And the thing is, I appreciate that. I think that's awesome.
I actually want to ask them. I have yet to ask them, and I'm still curious, like why the 5:29 or like the
I don't know. I think
49.
I saw that when I was going through the thing, but
it's for all the things.
I feel like it's because it's specific. Like this is the time. It's not vague. It's like very.
Yeah, because they do start on time. Like they will be. Yeah.
So, but kind of my thing was you don't come across as the typical, in my mind, what I would imagine like a mindset movement person to be or look like, or take that as you will. I mean it purely objectively, not in like any sort of, because I know it takes a lot to.
They do have the reputation, and they know it too, that it's a bit more like rah.
Yes. But like, how did you link up with them, and what's your experience been like?
A friend of mine was training with them. And I also was a bit hesitant because it seemed very David Goggins style type of training and stuff, which I try to steer away from because I think you can so easily kind of get stuck into this like overtraining, like push through an injury, like 50 Ks isn't enough. Why don't you do 100? Like, like overdoing it into a way that's like, you get injured or you burn out and then you're not training for reasons. You're training because of X, Y, and Z. So I was a bit nervous, but they have been like they've exceeded my expectations, like in terms of just like community. Like for almost all of my Saturday runs, my coach he finished. He was waiting at the end of my Saturday runs, like before everyone else had finished. Like he'd come back sometimes to see like me finish. So like if the group was doing a 3-hour run and I had a 5-hour run and they all went to breakfast, he'd come back, and like I think that's for a lot of people, a lot of runners. Like you see people doing ultra and you're like, yo, that person has like a bone to pick, or like, yo, like they're a little fucked up, But I've realized in the community, like everyone's just so kind, and I love that about like the trail community. Like no one's asking my time. Like with Mindset Movement, you have someone doing like their first 5K, then you have me or someone doing 100K or 100 miler, and we're all treated the same. Like my coach isn't going to me. He's giving me the same high five as he is, someone doing the first 5K, because we've all put in the time. It all means this like somewhat similar things to all of us. And I really like that. Like they have a really, I think they figured out a really healthy way, at least like with my coach, like a healthy way to train and
Are you with Didier or
Didier.
okay?
Yeah. Yeah. So they've been really awesome.
But it's awesome to see that as well, because it's something that I think it's very common to judge a book by its cover. Where
Yeah, I mean, I
you'll
did. And I
you'll
was
see,
like, guys,
this looks intense and
like rah. I mean, I rah, but like it's not like I don't want you yelling in my face.
yes.
Like, I need a very different type of coaching. Like I don't need someone who's like, fucking do this thing, you piece of shit. Like I need the opposite, because I'm already not that I'm hard on myself, but I'll get the training done. Like I'll be out there on a rainy day. So I don't need someone that's like, why aren't you doing this? Go harder. I need someone who's kind of more in my corner. And at least like for Didier, I think Kyle and Didier coached a bit differently. And like Didier, I think we've figured that out. Like he's super supportive. I was really nervous before this past 100K, and he like gave me a bit of a pep talk and stuff. But yeah.
That sense of community is amazing, because I arrived at the first aid station at Mutt, and there was a group of like 8 people who
Yeah.
were all mindset movement people sitting together around by the fire, and like Kyle was there, and I was just like, you don't see this with any other
Yeah.
coaching movements where the
It's
coaches
true.
will come out for that thing. Like, I mean, I'm pretty sure Kyle lives in Cape Town. Like, and he wasn't running any events. He was going there to be there for his athletes,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is incredible. Like, it's a hugely, valuable and supportive, network to have, where you kind of like it's not just like you're getting your training peak stuff. You're getting a whole bunch more
Yeah.
on top of that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's amazing. I think it's a really unique thing that they're doing, and it's cool to see that although they have their way of doing things, it can accommodate for people who are willing to put the time in, show up, and show up, and kind of just I suppose keep promises to themselves, because that's kind of what I saw. That's how I interpreted it, because I saw that they had a lot of people join who were formerly struggling with things around addiction, and coming out of really dark patches in their lives. And I think not having much experience in that, like myself, but just from observation, it's got a lot to do with building up a sense of self-worth again. And I think a lot of that comes from keeping promises to yourself, where you're like, I'm going to commit to go to this 4:27 o'clock, run,
o'clock,
like very odd hour, but
Yeah.
I know if I can commit to this thing and go to that, it's like, okay,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
it's a tick in the box of like showing up for myself. And even though it kind of looks a bit intimidating,
Yeah, it is such a thing. Like, I really believe that like I'm really disciplined about doing all my runs, even if it's like windy and it's like stormy, because there's like this thing of like confidence that you're building by like doing the thing that you said you would do, like as small as it is for me, like not doing a run because of X, Y, and Z. Like I'm kind of it's like these micro habits that I'm telling myself that like, I'm not gonna trust and back myself, but like now because like I try to keep my word, or like if I have something in the calendar, if I tell myself I'm going to do something, I believe in myself so much more because of that, and I think that like that's a huge part of training, and a huge part of like that process is like continuously showing up for yourself, even when like like whether at least now I'm like it's a poor excuse, but like even if you're tired, like you're doing the things even if you're tired, like that's showing up for you, and like that's committing to yourself and like the process and like the person you want to be, and they're really about that. Like I remember it was like in the beginning of our training, and there was like one weekend that I was tired, and like up until then I had done like every single training, and that day I had moved it to Sunday, and Daniel sent me like a 7-minute long voice note like about this topic, about like how important it is, like even if it's rainy, like 'cause I had moved it out because I was tired and it was windy one day, and I was like, listen, Didier, for the past like 5 weeks it has been like rainy on my Saturday runs, like I'm just gonna move it out. and I got like a 7 minute long, so pissed, but I got like a 7 minute long voice note, like lecturing about it. But like it was really only last year where like that's kind of started ticking in my brain where I was like, oh, this is why. Like this is why I constantly am training and like showing up for myself, is that confidence building and stuff.
It's
that belief.
yes, that belief, that confidence, and establishing your own reputation.
Yeah, for
Kind of
yourself.
for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like how do I view myself? Like what is the internal reputation I have?
Yeah.
And I feel like being keeping good on your word to yourself is like it's priority number one.
Yeah, and it comes through like in training. So like on this last run, what I think I was most pumped about is like how I was with my mind the whole time. Like for the majority of the run, except for the last 2 hours, like it was like I was kind to myself. When I got nauseous, I was like, okay, cool, it's fine. You know what to do. When my knee flared up, I was like calm. I was like, you've got this, and like that's mental chatter. Which I look back, and even during it, I was like you were just having a great little la la la. But I think that comes through, like that comes from the like showing up for yourself, because you have that such like confidence, and you just love for yourself that like on these longer runs, on like the 100K for you, the miler, it's like that chatter is very disciplined, and it's calm. Yeah.
And do you find that you've been able to apply that same kind of compassion towards yourself and how you navigate challenges in other areas of your life, for instance, with up, or do you find it a little bit more difficult in that context?
I think that it's gotten a lot better. Like I think it applies to every area of life, but I think like throughout the years it's just like it gets better and better, because I think I'm also realizing like I don't need to know everything, and I think that like the pressure I have on myself, like I've kind of relieved it a bit by saying like I don't need to be perfect at this. Like I don't need to run this time, or like I don't need to know like I'm not an expert in marketing, or I'm not an expert at this, and like there's like alleviating that pressure has made me feel like a lot more compassionate with myself, for sure. Yeah.
And I'm going to go more into up now. So I didn't realize that it was predominantly like kind of you were doing everything.
Yeah.
So how do you manage that? Because I mean, it's really difficult to run a business with a team, let alone kind of fully by yourself. And I know you said currently you have an intern, but that comes with a whole bunch of challenges. Training the person, getting them up to speed, onboarding them, and whatnot. So how do you manage to run your business purely by yourself? And kind of from my perspective, I'm curious as to how you do all the community stuff, because that kind of those are physical things that happen that you're at all of them from what I've seen. So how do you do that? How do you make time?
Yeah, it's you just do. Like I think that you I go through periods where I have like an adaptation phase where like I'll add more to my plate, and then I'm a little bit overwhelmed, but then I adapt because I know I will. So I think that like you just do, and I think that also like people always talk about balance, and I not that I don't really believe in that, but I also think that like I think you can do more than you think you can. I think that like you can find ways to like work a bit more efficiently, or like fit more into your day, but still remain and like hit all the like the facets that you need to. So like I guess I don't really know what balance means, but like for me it's like, am I seeing the people I need to see? Is up being taken care of? I like do freelance work that funds myself and the business.
What does that freelance work entail?
So I have like clients in the States. Yeah, it's like marketing.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. And then like am I like making time for like friends and family and stuff. And if all those things are kind of hits, then I'm pretty sorted and everything. But you make time. Like
Yes.
you always make time. Yeah.
And is there a specific way that I'm going to come back onto the balance thing because I think it's a really cool topic, but how do you structure your day? Is it quite fluid, or do you have a pretty
Yeah.
rigid way of setting things out, and this time is for that, and this time is for that, and because you do a lot of things. So how do you?
I literally had like someone ask me this yesterday, and I've tried to be rigid. So I have like a fluid rigid like template type of thing. But I think that because there's so much, I have to be a bit more fluid. Like so the mornings I try to like designate just for up. And then my afternoons I'll have my client work and a bit of up that kind of like will, flew into it. Flow. That'll
There we
flow,
go.
flew. That'll flow into it. And then my training, I'll either do like early morning or in the late afternoon, or sometimes I put my training in like the middle of the day to kind of break up like the up and the client work and stuff. But yeah, like or then like sometimes I think it depends like with how I'm feeling. I try to like go with the flow thing. Like sometimes I'll work later on in the evenings. I have a really active mind in the mornings, so I tend to wake up and like immediately start kind of going and stuff. Yeah, so I guess it's pretty chilled. Like I also think that a lot of people think there's like this like specific way. Like there's so many books on like, like healthy habits or, here's how you should like do everything,
This
Here's your
is
equation.
this is
type
the
of thing.
ideal kind of
Yeah.
morning routine or
Yeah,
whatever.
and I like and for so long and still now I'm like, what's my morning routine? And I think that I'm realizing like it's okay that like it's not like a cookie cutter type of thing. If it works for you, it works for you. Yeah,
That's cool. That's
but I'm
kind
still
of.
trying to figure it out.
I think it's. I think number
It
one,
changes.
being an entrepreneur, it's difficult to have rigidity.
Yeah.
I mean, Mark, I'm sure you can speak to that as well. But it's like you're not clocking in and clocking out. It's
Yeah.
also you're gonna say, all right, I've got, and maybe some people are better than others, but I've got girls' night. So I'm hanging out with my mates on. Thursday at 7, but you get a client email, and you're gonna check that, and you're gonna work on things at different times. It's not a
Yeah.
specific, it's quite malleable and it shifts and changes. But I think it's very difficult to have like set in stone routines.
Yeah.
I prefer to look at things in order of priority. So, and priorities change from day to day, week to week, month to month, year to year. And that also kind of goes into the balance thing. Like, what is balance? I think looking at it like a Venn diagram of social, professional, personal, whatever it may be, the size of those circles can shift,
Yeah, they definitely do.
or the time, I don't know, the time duration you're spending on those different circles is going to shift and change. That doesn't necessarily mean you're out of balance. It just means your priority for that period, like
Yes.
that chapter is different.
Such a good visual because I'm a visual person.
Where,
Yes,
you
yeah.
know,
I can like see it moving.
it's like, okay, cool, social is bigger right now,
Yeah.
and then maybe personal, which looks like running or something. They don't necessarily have to be separate, but maybe that shrinks a little bit. And that's perfectly fine, because at that stage, you're like, I am valuing my social time and my time with my partner and my time with my, my family and stuff more than I am running 13 hours a week because of prep for 100K.
Yeah.
And then the work one could get bigger and smaller. And I think that you're kind of, if you're intentional and conscious about what you do, like you
Yeah.
kind of remain in balance, but it just looks different.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's just a
exactly.
different.
I also think that like naturally I'm a pretty like all like chaotic person, but I think that like because especially since up, like people are always shocked when I say this, like because I seem very rigid, but naturally I'm really like I'm a bit more like chaotic and everything, but the business has forced me to like be extra like on top of things because naturally I'm not like that. So like naturally like I'll have to like do almost even more to kind of stay on top of my to-do list because I'll get like distracted easily or like it's not natural because I'm more like ADD. So like it's naturally like being late to things, for example, or just kind of like doing 5 things at once when I should just be focusing on the one thing, or like I'll roll out an event and like while that event is happening, I'll be planning like the next 3, and people will be like, "Why don't you just like this thing's happening? Just like focus at one thing at a time." So I feel like I have to work extra hard sometimes to like keep that flowness together. And I also know like that's just for now. Like there'll be a time, hopefully in like 5 years, where I can like feel a bit more like myself, if that makes any sense. Where I can be like, okay, like calm, can have a bit more fun in terms of just like being a bit more light. Because right now it's kind of just like this thing done, this thing done, this thing done. But try to have, like put some spice in the things, but still just keep a steady head, if that makes any sense, throughout the day.
And do you find that you're pulling yourself, or you're wanting to pull yourself in to focus on a specific thing instead of multiple other things because you've been told it's better to do it that way? Or do you feel like you actually do better work that way? Because I know that some people find a lot of value in just kind of like, going, like letting the chaos ensue and like working on one thing and working on another thing.
Yeah, I try not to. I mean, I do multitask, but I have really taught myself throughout the years to try to just like slow down and do like one at a time and do it well. But that's been like from like childhood, when like in school, when I've just been la 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 and like failing classes, and teachers are like telling my mom, please get your child in check because she's disrupting the class. So that comes from like years of knowing that I'm like that, and I need to, not need to, but like to work in some capacities, you kind of have to like focus on that type of kind of, or like that style of working. But I do try to, like, it has been nice since Up to like embrace that part of me a bit more, whereas beforehand, like in school and work, it's a lot more regimented, whereas now with Up I can kind of work in the way that fits me. But I still try to like, I do notice, especially now with like the intern, I'll be like, let's do this and let's do this, and it won't even be finished, and I'll have to go back and be like, okay, like I'm sorry, like let's make sure we're rolling this out so we can see completion on this. Yeah.
It's such a difficult thing to figure out to what extent do you allow your mind to just flow naturally and do what it gravitates towards, and what extent to like dial it in and focus on a specific thing for an extended period of time. I think, and I think it takes a lot of time. Like I think that's something I have so much work to do on personally, because I've also got a very busy mind, and I work so much better when I'm interested in the thing. So I will like notice this thing entering my thought process. I'm like, oh, that is so interesting. Like I really want to do that. And then like if it hangs around for, I don't know, like 45 minutes plus, I'm like, okay, maybe I'm just going to do that for a little bit, because sometimes I'm like, maybe I won't then have the motivation to do that specific
100%.
thing at another stage.
And then I'll get it done in a day. Like literally, there's an event that came in my mind. I think it was yesterday morning. I woke up and it was an idea. I'm like, this is gonna happen, and like literally made all the contacts to start making it happen. And that's just like how it is. We're just like, there's an idea, and it's like my heart rate even elevates. Where it's like I'm on like cocaine, or all of a sudden and I'm just like getting this thing done. But that's like how it is, and I'm like, so I've realized, like you said, I just have to maybe just roll with it, and I do anyway. So, but it's fun.
It's so much harder to do that, I feel, in an entrepreneurial context, though.
Yeah.
Because there are so many things that you can also justify just doing. Like there are multiple different things that you could possibly be doing. So, and if you do work on it, it's not like you're not being productive. Like it's an important thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I find that kind of streamlining of workflows quite challenging. But definitely
things you don't want to do.
Yes.
Like, I'm like, some people are actually really good at like admin. They're good at doing things that aren't like shiny and stuff. But if it's like not shiny for me, I'm like, it's way somewhere else, which is something I viciously need to work on, like really badly.
And it also does help when you kind of eventually do have the luxury of having somebody to help you with it.
Yeah.
Like that's a game changer.
Eventually.
Where it's like, okay, intern friend, here we go. Like just do this paperwork. I really don't want to do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's an interesting one. But so how you mentioned when we were chatting beforehand, you said that you had played around with a few business ideas in university. Firstly, what did you study at university, and what was kind of what's one of the businesses that you had when you were studying?
So I studied econ and business finance. So the first ever business, but I was like pre-university. I think I was like 13, and it was like a dog clothing magazine.
That is so interesting.
was like 13, but I was like this is revolutionary. Like I am changing the game. I like printed out like things and hung them all around town and like try to make like a little office space for myself and I have 3 younger sisters who like I had them all try to get them on board so all work for this thing. And like it went on for like a period of a week and then nothing came of it and I got bored like as usual and then and then moved on. But then in uni, there was a nonprofit that I started. It was we did free of charge dance classes to kids who couldn't otherwise afford dance classes. So did that for like a year and a half, and I tried to kind of like expand that model elsewhere, but it was quite hard. Like, I think actually that started in high school. I did that in high school. So that when I went to university, it was really hard to manage like studies. I was also dancing, and stuff. So it just became a lot to manage then. Yeah.
I feel like it's cool that you were doing things so early though. There was clearly like an affinity towards doing
My own thing,
entrepreneurial,
yeah.
doing your own thing. But that firstly, I think that dog clothing magazine is an incredible idea.
Like, have you? I need to look into like, is there currently one? I'm sure.
It's so niche as well.
Right, it's so niche.
And I think
something.
like I don't know, looking around and
Dog people are they're
Yes.
they're into that. They're into their dogs.
they're kind of they can be fanatical sometimes. It's like their dog's like their child.
So if anyone listening wants to start a dog magazine, let me know.
Yeah, that's something. Even though I don't have a dog, I'd probably page through. I think it'd be quite cute. I think dogs are sweet animals. But okay, so I want to go back onto the ultra thing. So what? I don't know if I fully understood the whole progression. Like, how did it get to that point?
So
Because you have enough going on. So, what?
Why this?
Yeah.
It's always been a part of my life. So in terms of like routine, like it's been natural. So like I grew up dancing, and dancing for me was a huge part of my life. Like it was how I understood the world. It was like how I understood myself. It was how I like made sense of what was happening in my life around me. And like it was probably like growing up one of the most important things, and that was all the way through university even.
What kind of dancing was it?
Ballet, and then kind of moved to like more contemporary and everything. So when I decided to like not pursue it as a career in undergrad, I was kind of like, who am I? Like, what am I gonna do? And I had always known that I wanted to run a marathon. Like, my mom did one and she spoke highly of it. And like, literally, I think at like age 16, I tried to run my first marathon, and I like called the like New York City like organizers. I was like, hey, like I know there's an age restriction, but like, can I please join? I can't remember what came of that, but obviously I didn't do it. So I always wanted to. So I was like, let me just like sign up for this Paris marathon. I was living in Paris at the time. Called my mom. I was like, hey mom, like I'm gonna run a marathon. She's like, okay, cool, that's awesome. When is it? I was like, it's 5 weeks from now, and I have like no base. I just have a dance base. And she's like, Meagan, that's not enough time to train. But it's like went ahead and did it, and like had a terrible time. Like I cried. I think I finished in like 6.5, 7 hours.
Well done for getting through it.
Yeah, but I got through it, and I was like, this is the coolest thing, like one of the coolest things I've ever done. Like, I think I had like a spiritual journey. I was overseas at the time, so I could have sworn I saw my family and my mom like on the sidelines cheering, and I was like, this is what's gonna replace dance for me. Like getting lost in movement, like I got lost in running, and I was like, this is where I can continue on the love for movement. So then I just like kind of kept I kept exploring that. And I had this thing from there where I was like, every year I'm going to do something that pushes me physically and mentally. I think I've stuck to that like since my sophomore year of uni. If it's not running, maybe it's like, a multi-day hike somewhere. One year it was like I did like a bike packing thing in Namibia, which was so dumb, like so dumb. I had no cycling experience. It was so dangerous. And now I think that I have a lot more like healthy relationship with running. I think like beforehand, it was a bit more like grind and push, and like, not that the self-talk was negative, but it was a lot more like, what the fuck, come on, type of mindset. Whereas now it's like we have nothing to prove to anyone, like, or to yourself, really. Like, we're doing this because we love it, and we love the person that you are doing it, and to like know more about yourself. I feel like I've learned so much about myself through, I mean, dance as well, but running, like, it just makes me a better person now, I think.
What do you think it is about running in particular that is this vessel for learning about yourself? How does it take you to those places where you reflect and learn? Because you're just moving your feet.
Yeah, yeah. Everyone's like, "Don't you get so bored?" I'm like, "Not at all." Like, I talk to myself on the trail sometimes. But it's a good question. I think like the first thing that pops to my mind is like on some runs I just get like angry for like no reason. I don't know if you do, but like there was one run where it was raining and I just was like, "Fuck this," and I just was angry, and there was nothing to be angry at. Like, but it's challenged me to like, okay, cool, why are we angry? And if you're angry at nothing, okay, cool, like, how are we gonna like talk myself out of this? Like, how am I gonna be nice to myself through this, or something like that? So I think like those things, because there's multiple of those, like, that's just one thing. Like, there's other different things that pop up when running that just, I think, that just make you kinder to yourself. Like, if you're frustrated because your knee is hurting or something, like, that's not going to do anything except for just like stifle you for a bit. Like, I find that with running, for me, it's a constant practice. Like especially for like these long races, like, it's a constant practice of like keeping my head on straight. So if like last year when I had a bit of a knee niggle going into it and it flared up like 6 kilometers into 100K, I was like, okay. And then it started like really hurting like 20Ks in. And I just had a little bit of a panic, and I was like, fuck, it's 20 kilometers in. This is your first 100K. Like, how are you going to get through this? And then I like had this like switch where I was like, okay, like, you're not a machine. It's actually quite cool that your knee is in pain, because it shows that like you're human and that you're doing this thing, and you know what, you will do 100Ks because you're tough and you're stubborn as hell, and like, we're gonna do this. So you have an option of like, continue to be in this mindset, or acknowledge, okay, cool, like, your knee hurts, it's kind of beautiful, let's do this thing. And like, there's like small like pivots, yeah, they're like mind pivots, like reframes. I think they allow you to learn a lot about yourself, you know. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
It does make a
Okay.
lot of sense. I can definitely relate to the kind of practicing of reframing stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's a really valuable part about running, because for the most part it is quite a it's not a quick form of exercise. It's usually happening over an extended period of time. Like,
Yeah.
even 30 minutes to an hour is a long time to do the same movement pattern. It's not, because like if you're lifting weights or something, you're doing multiple different movements. So I think when you're kind of sitting in that repetitiveness, and you are experiencing sort of discomfort or whatever it may be, whether it's mental or physical, and you choose to interact with it in a reframing way, I think that is, you do learn a lot about yourself, because then you get into an internal dialogue where you look at it in one way, and like you said, you experience that anger or that frustration or whatever it may be, and then you kind of come back to yourself and you're like, do we have to be approaching it with this kind of
Yeah, yeah.
this negativity? Like, is there another way that we can look at it that's going to be, I don't know, a little bit more gentle and conducive to actually getting through this thing? Well, how do we work through this productively? And I think that causes a lot of learning about yourself, because you
Yeah.
do get put into these situations where you're going to kind of have to move through it or sit through it, but not actually sit through it. You're running, but it's like, okay, how do we navigate the situation? And it's you and you. It's nobody else.
No one
It's
else.
just
Yeah.
you. Even if you're running with a bunch of other people, it's still something that you're kind of trying to you hold your own hand through, which I think it creates a lot of opportunity for reflection and learning about
Yeah,
yourself.
holding your hand's a big thing. Yeah. But it is an interesting point. So like it is interesting because like there's a lot of people that are like they don't love running alone. I think it's like very confronting because like you do have to sit with yourself. Like you do like it is just you for this very uninterrupted period of time. Maybe like listen to some music, but even then it's like it's just you like thinking. So like if you haven't spent time alone or like spent time in your own head, it's things are gonna pop up like naturally, you know. So I think that like and there's a lot of people that's and I get it, it's like I also when I first started running was like, oh, like okay, this is interesting, this has popped up, like let's explore this. But it's still scary, like it's scary to be like to start questioning, you know, your thoughts, your experiences, things that have happened in the past or whatever it may be.
I think it's definitely like a form of moving meditation because um, I I remember in lockdown, I think a lot of people tried, but I did like a Deepak Chopra guided meditation.
I also
like,
did.
It was like I think it was like a 30-day like
My
thing.
mom, oh, she was like, "You need to do this thing." Yes, I think it was I think I did the same thing.
And I found it so difficult though.
Yeah, I think I tried meditating. I actually tried practicing Buddhism as well.
So you vegetarian? No, that's
You vegetarian?
that's not Buddhism. I think that's wrong. That was an incorrect statement. I apologize. I apologize to Buddhists. I
a
forgot which that actually may have been a little bit racist to be honest. But anyway.
Oh my gosh, you're a vegetarian? Pescatarian.
Okay.
No.
I think it's because I have clients who are Buddhist and vegetarian. That's why, not because I thought Buddhists are vegetarian. But anyway.
I mean, I'm sure you can be like Buddhist and vegetarian.
But it's not a fundamental element of being Buddhist.
No. I
Okay.
think you can be whatever you want to be.
Yeah, no, I got that completely wrong. Anyway.
Yeah, like there's even people like practicing. Do you say practicing Christianity or like?
I think it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can still practice Christianity or Christians that would also practice Buddhism and stuff. So I think
That's so interesting. I thought it was.
Yeah.
So it's not. How are the two not mutually exclusive?
I think like when I was a bit more into it and everything, because I went to like one of the, I don't know the word for it, sessions, you know, one of the sessions, and a girl had asked that because she's Christian. She's like, can I be Christian and practice or be a Buddhist? And the guy was like, yeah, absolutely, because it's more of a practice of self and stuff, which I really liked and everything. How did we get on the Buddhism thing? We were talking about meditation.
Yes,
I
yes.
really tried meditating, and it just running as movement as meditation for me. But I really tried because everyone's like, you should give it a go. Like, and every once in a while I'll go through phases where I'm like, hey, wake up, sit and meditate for like 5 minutes, and it is nice, but I find that the movement is the best way to like get things going, you know.
I agree.
Yeah.
I also think because, so from what I've read about meditations, there's so many different forms of meditation,
Yeah.
but the kind of premise, I think a very basic form is like allowing your thoughts to come in and then watching them leave. Like,
Yeah,
just like,
without judgment.
yeah, just kind of
Yeah.
observing your thoughts. And I think running has a lot of that because like thoughts come in and out and in and out. And it's like, you're not, you know, you're not like on your phone running. You're
Yes.
kind of, you're having to kind of sit with those or run with those
I
thoughts.
think it's also really like why I love like trail running specifically is like it's my time off my phone because otherwise I feel like I can be glued to it. Like even before this, I like put my phone on do not disturb because I know like my watch would have buzzed and it would have interrupted me or something. But I love that like exercise time is like no phone time. Even like specifically running, 'cause even at the gym, I'll like start working. Like I was cycling this morning, and I was working while cycling.
I do the exact same.
Yeah, but running, especially in the mountain, like you can't really text. You know, like it's just you're gonna fall. You know.
I'm ashamed to say that I've almost mastered the skill of running and being
even
yeah.
on these mountains even.
Yeah, but the thing is, I do run the same routes over and over and over. So,
Okay.
like, oftentimes I'll get, you know, I've received all phone calls are different. So I'll get a phone call and it'll be like a sales call, like someone trying to get a membership,
Yeah.
and I'll just say, in case if you notice I'm out of breath, I'm running on the mountain right now. So just like, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
But these clients of mine, where I butchered that Buddhism, vegan, vegetarian thing, they're yogic. They like spiritually they are yogis or yogic or something like where there's I'm not sure what the religion around yoga is, but they prescribe they kind of that's their thing. So they do a lot of like mindfulness and like they do like these like retreats and things. And when I told them about the 100 miler, they were like, that's like a pretty much like a 30 plus hour like meditation,
Yeah.
because you're just doing the same thing for an extended period of time.
100%.
And also there's that pain element where it's like you're severely uncomfortable, but you're just practicing acceptance around that feeling where it's like, okay, like this is how I'm feeling, like I'm just going to accept it. And there's a tremendous, it's like it's so random, but there's so much
true.
growth in that way.
Yeah, and accepting whatever's going on.
It's like,
I don't know how if you've, like, towards the end, like, if I'm in pain or whatever is going on, I find that, like, I just, because I've accepted so much of everything, I just don't even feel that, like, you know, my knee is hurting. Or,
yes.
like, I mean, I did ask, like, my coach why that is, and apparently there's, like, there is some science behind that. But I also think that has to do with this, like, radical acceptance of, like, we're doing this thing and we are going to do this thing, you know?
Yes,
That's
it's really cool. There, I think I mentioned it on a previous podcast, but there was a guy, his name's Nick Grohl. He's on the coaching group that I'm on, and he came in to the gym one day, and he basically said, because he's done a bunch of 100-milers, and he was just saying, you know, doesn't matter if you're itchy, doesn't matter if you've got chafe, doesn't matter if like whatever, you still got 100 miles to run. Like, and it was a very simple way of putting it, but it was just like, it is what it is. Like nothing about where you're going has changed. It's like that is still the thing. That's still the task.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, and I don't know. It removes the weight from those annoyances and those little blocks.
You're like, okay, I'm chafing. Like, it's just like you've passed this like acceptance point where you're just like, it's happening.
Exactly.
Like without judgment or any like even bad or good type of feeling, which is like a really odd place to be at, where you're just like, oh, it just is.
Yes.
You know? Yeah.
And it eventually actually dissipates and fades away.
It does.
Where if you accept it, oftentimes the messaging that's the pain or the whatever just kind of like goes away. Because I don't know if that's because I don't know, your body realizes that that message is not being received or whatever it is.
Okay,
but
fine. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really cool.
It's like this like persistence wears down resistance type of thing, and then eventually it just like goes, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Like we've tried to tell her to like stop running, but she's not. So we're just gonna chill over here, type of thing.
Precisely. And you said, so I know you weren't too keen on the what next, but I remember we chatted quite a bit at an event recently about just running 100 miles and running ultras and things like that. Is there anything on your radar in the near future, as in the next year, around ultras, and have you got any idea what that might look like?
I think I'm very similar to you, where I try to like intuitively go to where I feel like is next. So like I have this thing where like if I watch the video, or like what's it called, the promo video to an event, and I get a bit emotional, then I'm like, okay, cool, I'm doing that. And I've done that for like every big event that I've done. And if I don't get emotional, or if I have no like, you know, intuitive reaction, I'm like, okay, cool, maybe not. I think for this year, I definitely like, I don't feel burnt out yet, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't feel like, you know, I need to take time off or anything. So I'd like to definitely do another 100K. A miler, like, is on the cards, but I'm still, like, waiting for that, like, very intuitive moment where I'm like, fuck yeah, you know? There's also this, like, run to Namibia that is happening, but it's a road run, and, like, I don't know if I want to return back to the road. So I have a couple like ifs. I definitely would like to do something because I feel like I can, if that makes any sense. But I'm just gonna like see where like intuitively that big thing, you know, like the 100K, I feel like that's something I can kind of start pushing now, if that makes any sense. Like you for like the 75, you're like, maybe I'll start pushing. I think like with the 100K, like maybe I could start exploring what it would be like to like push a bit more. But I'd like to do something that's like the miler or like a really long distance thing, but like maybe that's next year though.
I would highly recommend it. I think it's talking about spirituality. That is a spiritual experience.
Yeah, it's like 2 nights in a row.
I think it's honestly, I think it was the coolest thing ever.
Really,
I think
really?
it was literally life changing. Like I sound
Really?
like I'm not lying at all. Like I came back and like my clients were like, "Oh my word, you seem so calm. You seem so." And like to be honest, like I I don't know, like it just felt transcendental. Like I
Yeah.
felt, and I've told this to so many people, but I also literally hallucinated, which was super weird.
Yeah, you said, yeah.
And it was just such a peculiar, weird,
And did you say
like
like the rocks were turning or
the
something?
rocks, the rocks were moving, and then I kept
Wild.
mistaking trees for people, and then I also a lot of the rocks turned into frogs.
You always hear people hallucinating, and I'm like, I just cannot imagine. Like,
I couldn't either, and then it happened, and I was like,
I
"This
would
is crazy."
panic. I don't do well with like like things like out of control. I'm like, were you?
I think you'd be
but I
fine
guess
because
you-
you're so
you chill.
tired. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
is that a frog? I don't know. Like, it's the,
Interesting.
um,
Yeah, maybe. It's actually been a while since. So usually on events that I do, I'm severely undertrained for them. Like it's the first time I had a coach was last year. So I always like push for goals that are just like way like unsafely far, which has been really cool learning for me. So I haven't had that like spiritual type of thing in a long time like because I think when you're trained up for something and like enough, even for like 100K, like it's hard, but you can still get through it. But something
yes.
like 100 miles, like it's not just the hard. It's like you're exhausted. You know what I mean? You have like the two nights, type of thing. So like you're bound to. So
I think
maybe.
I think what you'd also absolutely love about it is that there's this thing around. I don't know. It's like a you're really good at like cultivating community and like surrounding yourself with amazing people and like having support and like how good it feels to be in a community setting and to be supported by a community and
Yeah.
like do something with them. Like they're a part of that thing. 100 miler for me just felt like the pinnacle of that.
Okay.
It was like every aid station, seeing
Yeah.
Claire, seeing my friends and
Yeah.
family and stuff. It was like, it's just like your cup is like overflowing with gratitude for
Yeah.
those people on another level.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where it's like you guys are staying up for 2 nights as well.
Yeah.
Like you are putting yourself through
They
some
don't realize how
crazy.
important it is. Like, cause last year was the first 100K, and I didn't. And like my coach was like, make sure you have a crew, and I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh! And now I understand. Like they literally like they got me through. See, like
It's beautiful.
it's a really cool relationship you have between you and your crew because like you said, they're staying up for like a really like it's work for them. Like it's stressful. It's like they're up as well, and like this really cool like vibe between everyone. Like that like the people that have helped crew me like I just yeah
And you feel their presence even
can.
when you aren't actually with them.
You can,
You're like,
yeah.
I'm going to see them in
Right.
15K's time. Like
I have
that's
no
what
idea what it means.
like
So
that. It's like I
much.
cannot wait to see my
Yeah,
crew.
it's like okay, cool. Like 5Ks until I see them, and then you can feel like you said you can feel their energy as you go like as they push you along to the next aid station, and then they pull you along when you get closer to the aid station type of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's awesome. But whatever it is that you do, I'm very I'll be watching and I think it'll be really cool. Just out of curiosity with zero pressure, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff that I did want to ask you that I didn't, but can always do another one. Oh, sorry, I have to ask this question. How do you, because you're doing these big ultra events,
Yeah.
how do you keep your brand? Because your brand feels very welcoming and it feels very accepting and inclusive to me. That's how I've experienced up. How do you manage to maintain that and create that, but you do like hardcore stuff? Because
Okay.
you're leading the brand, you're creating the thing.
Yeah.
How does it not 4x4 by 48,
It's so
100Ks?
hardcore. It's the
How
David Goggins thing.
Because
Yeah.
I get concerned sometimes with Horizon. It's like is
Yeah.
my like the
Yeah,
stuff that I do going to
yeah.
rub off on the brand in a way that people are going to say that's scary? Like it's too like I don't know if that's my vibe. Like how do you
can
mitigate?
so easily lose those people. It's
Yeah.
actually so true. Like so many people, and it's quite sad. They'll be like, "Oh no, I'm just doing." If they find out that you're doing these distances, like, "Oh no, I'm just doing 25Ks this weekend." You're like, "That's
That's
awesome.
amazing.
Like that's great." It's a good question. I think especially because we're like kind of pivoting a bit the business to like not the business but the brand to be a bit more like running focused and to be a bit more like highly technical wear, specifically like running wear. So this question's been brought up like quite a few times because I'm like like focusing on marathons, ultra marathons, but I'm constantly reminded by people being like, Meagan, that's intimidating. Like, Meagan, I don't run, or like, hey, like 5Ks is like a big push for me. But I think it's in like having really good, I guess, like representation, or like, I guess like if I'm hardcore about it, then it's gonna be hardcore. But like everything I do is like I'm back of the pack running. Like if I go to like any of the run clubs, I am in the back. I'm chatting. Like I don't really do things.
I'm laughing because I do the same thing. Like at our first Thursday things, I
Yeah.
walk. I'm literally not
Yeah,
running.
I am like
I'm
the
like,
least like I'm happy to have it be a social run. For me, it's like I've never really made it about pace, and even though it is fine to do that, it's like I think for me it's just about doing the thing and like doing it for the first time. That's I think why I like do like I like if it's the miler, it's okay, cool. It's the first time doing the miler, and like I'm gonna show you like the shitness. I'm not just gonna show you like, oh, like I'm doing this tough thing and I'm hiking up a mountain. It's like this sucks and I'm going up Platiclip or something like that. So I think, yeah, maybe it's just like being real, if that makes any sense. But also showcasing like other achievements, which I probably need to do a better job of like, it's not just people running marathons. It's also like, the first 5K, like couch to 5K is almost more impressive than someone who's like trained,
100.
right?
100%.
Like people who like train for a marathon, I'm like, okay, cool, good for you. But like you like to go from couch to 5 or 10K, you have dealt with a lot more. I mean, I don't know, like you don't wanna like, but you've had to go through a bit more of that.
There's a lot
Back
more
and forth.
inertia as
There
well
is,
because
yeah.
you're starting from scratch.
Yeah,
From not
completely.
like, and you're having to create that momentum.
Yes, yeah,
Whereas if you're
exactly.
preparing for a marathon, like you've probably been running for a little
Yeah.
bit before that, and you
Yeah.
understand general
Exactly.
things.
I
And
love like I mean watching the marathon is like everyone must watch like the first bits, the first 25%, but like for me the most impressive bits of the marathon are like the 50% to like the end, if that makes any sense, because those people like there's just something about that group of runners that like I find really inspiring and stuff. Not to like everyone has their own thing, but like I just think that people often think that success is in numbers and it's in distance, and I just it makes me kind of like not sad, but I get kind of sad when running is quantified in that way. So I think another huge thing as a brand is what I'm really trying to figure out is like how do we remove distance and time from the sport. So like with the like the 4x48 events, like that was just about getting it done, and then these events we have in this year, I think also trying to find ways to like make it inclusive and focus on like the sport of running and not just like the metrics of it and stuff. So yeah, maybe that's why. But I think that's been like the most important thing is like like running as like a form of something and not running as a metric and stuff. I think, and all the decisions are around that. Like there's this one relay challenge that we're busy planning, and I'm like trying to find ways to make it non-competitive. Like if that makes any sense. Like trying to find ways to kind of not just make it about the finishers or like the first and second and third finishers. So I think when you have that thing up top, like everything else kind of goes around it. That value or something. Yeah, that belief. Yeah.
cool.
But that's good feedback to know that it doesn't appear super rah.
It's something that I'm hyper aware of with the gym.
Yeah.
Because gym is a typically quite intimidating idea and space. And from the beginning, I wanted to try and dispel that whole thing, which I thought would be. I was still working on it, but I thought, that's going to be really challenging because I do like to push myself as hard as I do. And how am I going to avoid letting that scare people off?
Yeah.
But I feel like if you create a narrative that speaks to the not scary elements of like why one does things like that, it kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I
100%.
don't know, you're trying to learn about yourself and things like that. I feel like it's not about being like a super hardcore
Yes.
person.
Yeah.
It's just you're curious and you're
Yeah.
exploring stuff. It's like
Yeah.
there's so many other avenues. We just happen to have picked exercise.
Yeah, that seems like a psycho person thing to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But thank you so much
No,
for
thank
your
you.
time. I might have to message you again for another episode because there are a lot of, like I said, a lot of things I would have liked to have brought up.
same.
But if people want to find you or your brand up, where can we find you?
You can find us anywhere. It's just Upwear on Insta, and same thing with online.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's www.upwear.com.
.co.za.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then where are you? What's your, like, where can people find you on Instagram? Okay.
Yeah,
fine.
first and last name. Type it on Instagram. I'm sure it'll pop up and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
If you want to find us as a collective here at Horizon, we are Horizon ZA on Instagram. And if you want to find me personally, it's Brenna on Instagram. And yeah, drop a message if you've got any questions about training or lifestyle. Slide in there.
Yeah.
Pop a DM. You're more than welcome. I'm very happy to answer those questions. But yeah, pop into the gym and yeah, come and chat. We're always happy to have new faces around. Meagan, thank you so much.
I love that you're speaking to the like the dashboard, like it's the
To the listeners.
Yeah.
Those are the listeners over
Hey
there.
guys, pop in there.
But yeah, it's been good chatting. And guys, if you enjoyed it, please do share it with a friend and leave us a rating and review. And we'll catch you in the next episode of Beyond Physical.
Woot woot.
Whoop, whoop. Thank you so much for listening to the show, guys. We love answering specific questions. So if there's anything you want to know, leave a comment or reach out to us directly at Horizon ZA on Instagram or email us at movement@horizongym.com. Until next time, I'm your host, Seb Prentice, and this is Beyond Physical.